Hello everybody, welcome to this lecture on the purpose and types of valuation studies. In this we will be dealing with mine valuation definitely, but we will also talk about different purposes, why we are doing this project valuation, how we are doing this kind of valuation, what are the different approaches available for the mining project valuation studies. Now here the concepts that we will again cover the market value and the valuation. There will be some the definition of the terms rather, and types of valuation model available, rather the most important valuation models like the cost, market or income, and also we have added one more called the option pricing. To start with, we will talk about the market value and the valuation. So, from the word value, we are trying to ask a simple question: what is the value of that mine? Because if you are going to purchase or say invest there, then what is the value of that mine, and what is the mine worth, like this thing. So, we are speaking of market value. That means we want to exchange this for money in monetary terms. So, it can be defined as the value established in the public market by exchanges between a willing buyer and a willing seller, when neither is under the duress to complete the transaction, but the degree of willingness of the buyer and seller and the market conditions for sale will determine the market value fluctuations. So, before we talk about the valuation, let us talk something about the values associated with the project, different parameters which can be judged in terms of a value. So, value is a term so basic to financial analysis that you can get easily confused with. So, there are many types of value. For example, how to measure these things, these values. Some of the approaches, like on different items, it can be salvage value of a machine, or even a plant, or even a salvage value of a mine. Something is left there, a project is over. So, what is the salvage value? The replacement value approach, capitalized value is also a valuation, book value, assessed value, or say insured value. In the salvage value is the net sum over and above the cost of removal and sale realized for a property or asset when it is retired from service, when it is retired from service, it is no more in service. So, what is the net value of that? So, it depends on many things, like say if it is junk material, you can just go by weight for equipment or so, but it can be even repaired and then put into service once again. In that case, the salvage value will be different. So, now the replacement value refers to the existing value of the property or asset as determined on the basis of what it would cost to replace the property or its service with at least equally satisfactory or comparable property and service. So, if you want to replace, to get one another, what money I have to spend to get the similar or satisfactory comparable property and service. Then comes the book value. Like the book value is the original investment in the property or asset, as carried on the corporate books, less any cumulative allowance or depreciation, amortization, these things. So, there is an original value minus the cumulative allowances for depreciation and amortization. If you deduct that, you get the book value at the end of that year. Again, some depreciation is loaded and the book value changes once again. Assessed value is the value entered on the official assessor's records as the value of the property, because this is mostly used for the your tax calculations, wealth tax, asset tax, like that. And the insured value is at which the property has been insured against loss. If there is a loss or disaster, how much we are going to get from the insurance agency. So, that value has to be declared on a rational basis. The capital value otherwise is a property the sum of a discounted future annual or net earnings generated by the property. So, the capitalized value concept is synonymous with the income approach value estimation for properties, which we will discuss later. Now, we will have the cash flow. So, any project involves a certain set of payments, cash movements. Some of them are made by the company in order to run the project, that means we are talking about cash outflow, and some of them are payments made by the project to the company. So, it is a cash inflow, cash inflow. So, this net results of the payment in a given time period may lead to cash inflows and cash outflows, which would again sum up and indicate either a positive or negative sign, right? Because if the positive amount is less and the negative is more, so naturally the net flow will be negative. It has been shown like this: the cash flow equals to annual cash flow inflow minus annual cash outflow. It can be positive or say negative. So, some of the cash inflows, which is a very important technique, the cash inflows and cash outflows. So, the example is like revenue from the sales, so sales revenue from ore or metal, that is cash inflow. Salvage realized from the sale of equipment that has retired from service, so you get this salvage realization cash inflow. Tax credits, you pay tax, you get some tax refunds, you get the tax credits. And then return of working capital at the end of mine productive life. So, the money comes back to you, it is a cash inflow. And some of the cash outflows similarly: exploration expenditure, capital expenditure for development, expansion, equipment, operating cost, a regular cash outflow, royalty is a cash outflow, mining tax payment, transportation and further processing charges are also cash outflow. Now, here the cash flow will be negative in the beginning, because in the beginning for mining projects the expenditure will be much more, the investment will be much more, and the return will be in the beginning 0. So, gradually it picks up. With the start of production phase, it gradually starts becoming positive from very low and then goes to the full capacity. So, as a convenience for economic analysis, we do this cash flow, this annual cash flow is assumed to occur at a particular point in time, and that is usually the end of the year. For example, for a financial year, we assume that everything has taken place in the month of March of that financial year finally, and then again starts from April to March. So, whatever is happening between April to March, cash outflow, cash inflow, all these things will be determined at the end. So, everything has occurred at that time. So, as I said earlier, that the cash flows will be finally determined by subtracting the outflows from the annual cash inflows. For example, here say the annual cash flows, if you are calculating profits, so the gross income will be the cash inflow, operating cost will be negative, like outflow, and these are all outflows. Now, here in the cash flow for positive or negative, gross income minus taxes plus depreciation minus repayment of loan capital and investment cost. So, these are negative, like you have to determine which are rather coming to you, your coming back from the project to the company. So, those will be inflows, and which are going from the company towards expenditure of the running of that project, those will be outflows. Now, the different value we talked about, and the cash flow, outflow, inflow, because of the purpose that whatever we are going to talk now, these terms will be very often used. So, the types of valuation approaches can be broadly categorized into 4: 1, 2, 3 and 4. Out of these 3, the first 3 are major. Option pricing is a very special case, but I have added it here for discussion with some examples. But these are the fair value approaches. These are standard practices. Option pricing is a very special case. In the cost approach, to determine the depreciated replacement cost for the asset is taken as the cost approach. That means, what would it cost to reproduce the asset with another of identical quality or the state of repair? It's a replacement type. So, the fundamental concept with this approach is that the purchaser would not be justified in paying more for a property than it would cost to acquire the land and construct improvements having comparable quality, assuming no undue delay. That means that if you are trying to do the valuation of a property, same thing, whether can it be done somewhere else with the land, property and everything is built up. This is rarely applicable in mining, because the correlation between construction cost and the value of the property is very imperfect in case of mining. If one were to build two 100 TPT mines, one in a very rich deposit and one on the economically marginal low grade ore, then the construction cost might be the same, but the fair market value of the two mines would be clearly different. So, this cannot be a standard approach for the mining valuations. Similarly, the value of a concentrator, when the ore is getting depleted, that time the value or real value of that the concentrator plant lying over there will be very low. But when you have a good reserve and which is running plant, running company, in that case the concentrator will be having very high value. Secondly, another problem arises when you try to apply the cost approach is for newly discovered mineral properties, which are having no surface improvement or equipment of any kind, greenfield you can say. The very nature of mineral exploration and mining dictates that the discovery value of any ore deposit is generally greater than the cost incurred in making that discovery. So, it cannot be directly compared. Cost approach is not a good approach for mining, because of specific locations will definitely, and it will differ from place to place. Now, if we go for the next one, is for the market approach. This assumes that the purchaser would not be justified in paying more of a property than it would cost him to acquire an equally desirable substitute property. It has a problem that I will discuss later on. That means I am not buying this one, but I am buying another one. So, this method studies sales and purchase, the market for similar assets, in attempting to determine the market value of that item. Now, the concept of market value also presumes conditions of open market where sale and buying is going on for a reasonable time. So, you can take your decision, yes, for so many years or 1 year or 2 years I have the data of knowledge. So, the knowledgeable buyers and sellers, so what will happen, they will take a decision based on sufficient number of transactions which is going on in an open and stable market. So, this is extensively used for the residential and agricultural property, but practical problems will definitely come when we try to go for the mining transactions. Why? There are very few sales going on at a given point of time. So, the data available is insufficient for you to take a decision. So, if I am purchasing a mining manganese mine, does not mean that I will have the data where based on which you can take a decision. So, how many manganese mines are being sold and purchased at a given period of time? That is very rare. So, what will happen that you have to go for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years at different place and different time in different country, in different economic and social conditions. So, it is very difficult to compare those things. So, that is why that there are very few sales of mining properties, as we say here, and the comparative data will be unavailable. So, since each mineral deposit is unique in quality and size, geographical location, as I was saying, the data cannot be compared so easily. So, the market data must not only from the similar asset, but in a similar point in time. That means similar asset at a similar point of time, that can be compared somewhat and you can take some decision. Otherwise, it will be difficult. So, what will happen in that case? There has to be a judgmental trade-offs rather than strict numerical calculations that you can make valuations by this. So, the judgmental trade-off will predominate in market approach. Now, we are coming to the income or earning approach. With the income approach, the value of an asset or say investment type property is estimated by calculating future annual net earnings generated from the producing property or asset, and then discounting this earning stream to the present time using an appropriate interest rate. So, this is very important, and you have already studied by this time the time value of money. So, when you are estimating the value, what we do that we try to project the output of this mining project return that is coming every year over say for example for a period of 30 years, and then you are using the discounted cash flow technique and bringing those value to the present value, calculating back the future values in terms of present values. Now, the present value of all future returns are calculated and bringing to one place for the purpose of calculating the net present value. Because of this procedure, many analysts refer to this approach as capitalized income approach. So, the present value of the income stream is to be derived from the property or estimated from the property. So, when I try to purchase, I will not pay more than that. I will not pay more than that. So, the present value can be net present value can be estimated, and then a decision can be taken. So, it is, as I said, it is possible to arrive at a value estimate by combining the selling price of the commodity produced with the associated cost of producing the commodity. Of course, the selling price of the commodity also need to be forecast. Otherwise, what happens that the time value again there cannot be applied. So, by properly incorporating this data into DCF analysis or discounted flow analysis, cash flow analysis, it is possible to arrive at the estimate of the property value when there is no actual production. So, you can estimate that having the knowledge of that deposit and the engineering technical feasibility that can be studied, a detailed feasibility study can be, or even a pre-feasibility study can be done, through which we can understand what could be the value of this property. So, it is not a direct estimate of the or computation of the value, but rather is an estimate of the potential. This is very important. Is estimate of the potential income that can be generated from the mining the commodity and selling the product. Now, the mines, as you know, are having limited horizons, operating horizons, and they are well established. There are well established markets for mineral commodities. So, the income approach is widely used in valuation of mineral properties. Not only that, most taxing authorities employ some variation of this approach for determining the mine value for the purpose of calculating the taxes. From a practical standpoint, the income approach has the capability of incorporating more obtainable and realistic data for analysis. That is why we take this as a preferred approach. This income approach is consistent with the generally accepted definition of the value of a mineral property. This value is an estimated value of its potential to give you the return. So, the value of a mining or mineral property at a specific point of time is simply the present value of all anticipated future net annual proceeds accruing from the ownership. Accruing from the, if you are the owner, what net annual proceeds you will get. So, when you add all those things, that gives you the value of the project. By the very nature of this income approach, one is necessarily projecting the future costs and prices both. So, the preferred method we can say so far property valuation and that can be used for commercial practice is the income approach. Now comes an additional very special type of valuation, where we have the option pricing. It's like a stock, must have heard about this, or we will also discuss these things later on when we talk about the shares, equities and all those things. See, the principle of this approach is that a mine is analogous to a stock is an assumption here, very special case. To estimate this, its market value. That means it becomes only rather very helpful when the output prices are uncertain and it is possible to open and close a mine in response to a variation in output price. That means, if the output price goes up, you can operate. There is a tendency that okay, it will continue, you can operate. If there is a fall, you can stop, which is very difficult for a mine. In certain cases it is possible, in most of the cases it is difficult. So, just to say that stop it here for 2 months or 6 months or 8 months is difficult for a mining. Even then we will discuss, there are cases where this can happen, where it is possible to employ outsourced manpower for a certain period of time and then say that you go unless I give you a call, you don't come back, like that. So assumption is that it's possible to open and close the mine in response to a significant variation in the output price. So if it is not in your favor, then you don't operate. If it is in your favor, promising, you operate it. The conventional income approach does not recognize the value of this option to shut down. It is a continuous process. The option to shut down exists when it is possible to open a mine in response to changes. As I said, like the value of the option depends on the production cost, current product prices and the volatility of the market product in the market. So it is claimed that the valuation procedure related to option pricing theory provides an alternative to DCF analysis, but this is in a very special case, and this procedure is advantageous because it does not require explicit cash flow forecast or risk adjusted discounted rates. We will just give you an example. So for the option value for the given data, for example, current iron ore price is 7,500 rupees per ton. The strike price or the cost of opening the mine per ton of ore extracted, for example, is rupees 6,000. Time to expiration is 3 years. Risk free interest is 6% and volatility of the iron ore prices plus minus say 25% goes up and down. The most well known formula for using the option pricing method is through Black-Scholes formula for a call option, where we have two important terms, D1 and D2. The D1 is calculated as log S by K plus R plus 0.5 sigma square whole multiplied by T divided by sigma into T raised to the power 0.5 square root of T. Now D2 is D1 minus sigma into root T square root of T. From there, the call option is represented by C, a value which can be calculated as S into N in D1 N D1 minus K into e raised to the power minus R T into N D2, where N is the normal distribution of D2 and D1 is the normal distribution of D1. Let us calculate using the values that we have given in the previous slide. Simply by substituting the values here, we get that the D1 is 1.1477, and from D1 using this part, putting the value of D1 here and sigma and T, we get the D2 to be 0.7147. Now using the standard normal tables, you can get the values of the distribution as 0.8742 and 0.7624 respectively for ND1 and ND2. Now we are determining the value of C using the formula that we have, the equation that we have given in the previous page. So, by replacing the the ND1 and ND2 values and K values here, we know the value of D also. So, from there we get the value, option value, which is given as C is 2736 rupees. The option value 2736 per ton of iron ore, this represents the premium for waiting before committing to mining operations. That means, when this comes, you can say that now we can go open the mining operations. If iron ore prices are highly volatile, the option value will increase, making the option approach more beneficial, because here if you change the those values that we have given in the previous equation, and the fluctuations is more, then the option value approach, if applicable, will be more beneficial than the existing discounted cash flow techniques. As I have told several times during this lecture, is that the option pricing, like applicability of that in gold mining, in certain the applicability of the option pricing in gold mining has been successfully done in many commodities also. But for general application of this particular technique is not always possible, right? Very special case. So, we can say that overall depending on whatever we have discussed so far, we can say that we should go for the income approach, or the cash, using the cash flow and the discounted cash flow techniques to find out the all the present values and the net present values as the preferred mine valuation technique for the mining projects. The others have their special special application area, especially the option pricing. General applicability, regarding the general applicability, I would rather, I must say that the income approach is the most popular and appropriate technique for a mining project valuation. We have certain references. You can use the mineral project valuation book by Jones, Lilford and Chan. Also the Professor Rai and Professor Shina's book. You can see this one also, and there is a good amount of material in option pricing models and volatility using Excel. This is a practical demonstration by F.D. Rao. This is also good reference. So far we have discussed about different valuation approaches and techniques, and there are very special techniques also like option prices that I have discussed. From here we can say that the income approach or the cash flow technique is the most appropriate technique, which will be discussed in the following lectures extensively, and you can understand the utility of these particular ideas of cash flow and income approach. Thank you very much.